I'm having
Will you
issues.
turn on all these lights so that my face is lit up?
We're going live to YouTube, guys.
Okay.
And I want to welcome everybody to the world according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. And I want to thank his assistant, Glenn Campbell, for helping set up tonight. You did good work, Glenn. And I want to thank everybody in the chat. We've been thank you.
His name is Glenn Miller. His name is Glenn Miller.
Glenn
Miller, very, very, very famous band leader in the 30s and 40s.
Yes, and he's been reincarnated. And I want to thank everybody that's been downloading the show. I want to thank everybody and remind everybody to get Ben's email, benstein.substack.com. But most importantly, we've just signed up for that new social media app called Getter, and we will be entering that app. It is the started by Stephen Miller, or I think Stephen Miller was not Stephen Miller, whoever it was, one of Trump's former big people. But we're joined tonight from 93.1 WIBC, BAM, the future and president of conservative talk radio, the president, Rob Kendall. How you be, Rob?
I'm great. Ben, I'm filling in on the #1 afternoon show in Indianapolis tomorrow, Hammer and Nigel. They are begging me to get you on the show tomorrow.
What time, sir? What time, sir?
Any time afternoon Eastern time, but before 6. You got a 6-hour window.
How about 12:30?
Your time or our time?
My time.
3:30. I think we can make that happen.
No, 3:30. I'm getting my hair cut.
No,
12:30. 12:30 my time.
12:30 your time.
Yes, I can do that. I have to have Judah remind me.
And perfect. I will give Rob your phone number. And always an easy opening here on The World, according to Ben Stein. But of course, the show wouldn't be complete without writer, actor, provocateur, saint, sinner, lover, America's humble servant. But of course, mathematician, statistician, and of course, most importantly, Dr. Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
Very few people can do what I have done and do almost every day, which is to separate conjoined triplets with my bare hands.
They keep growing in size. It was twins, now it's triplets.
Unbelievable what I can do with these hands.
I've heard and I've seen them in action, and it is a true miracle. But right away, off the bat, I want to get into something extremely important. The first major league the first Orthodox Jew was drafted into the major leagues. As they say in Yiddish, I am kvelling with pride, and he was drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks. I couldn't think of a weirder place for a Jew to be drafted.
It's great.
God bless him. It's an amazing feat, and it gives hope to all the little Jews out there wearing their yarmulkes that are facing major amounts of anti-Semitism these days in America and across the world. Screw you. We could do it, and we will fight back. We will not take this laying down. And we salute you.
Or lying down.
Or lying down. And thank you, Mrs. Levin. Okay, so Ben, but
wait. I have a Jewish question.
Yes, sir.
What, like Sandy Koufax famously didn't pitch in the World Series on Yom Kippur because he was Jewish.
Yes.
What's the difference between an Orthodox Jew, for all those at home, and just someone who is Jewish?
Okay, so let me explain this, Ben, if you don't mind, because this is sort of my wheelhouse. It's an observant Jew observes the Sabbath, right? So sunset to sundown to sunset for 25 hours. They don't use electricity. They don't drive.
There's the in that word.
They don't, always makes it easy. They don't use computers. They don't use cell phones, Rob. They observe the laws of kashrut. And there's a few obviously things I'm leaving out, but this kid keeps kosher. He has all the food brought to him that's kosher. He won't drive to the stadium. And as my father said, he's compromising. So he will play on the Sabbath. He will play on high holy days, but he will walk to the stadium, which I'm sure is great in Arizona in 115-degree weather to walk to a stadium before you pitch a game. Did that help, Rob?
Arizona is a great place.
Yes.
A really great place.
Yeah, Arizona is a great place. Did that help, Rob?
Yes, thank you.
So the difference is Sandy Koufax wasn't an observant Jew, but Yom Kippur is the highest of holy days that almost every Jew in some way recognizes. So there's your answer. There's your Jewish lessons from Judah Friedman in the chat and everybody listening into the podcast. But Ben Stein, I wanted to talk about this tonight because it's extremely important. I love the last show where you really broke down history because, like I said, you are the rabbit hole. You are the who needs Wikipedia or Google when you have Ben Stein. And as we're watching, I couldn't help but think, Rob and Ben, I couldn't help but think we've gone to places where we weren't needed or wanted, but every time we're needed or wanted, we never go. So we've made the worst foreign policy blunders, other than World War II, thank God, where we went. But there have been many situations where we had in Iran where they were just ready to topple the government, and Obama stood back. We have this Cuban situation going on right now where the White House says people are rioting because of COVID shots when they're just raising American flags for freedom, Ben. And I know Cuba's got a seriously intense military.
Seriously intense.
A seriously intense military. But why is it? But I want you to explain this Cuban situation because this is, yeah, please.
Well, first of all, you're not right about us not going to places where we're needed. We went into Korea and we stopped the North Koreans and the Communist Chinese and the Russians from seizing the whole Korean peninsula.
I didn't say all. I just so you know, I said I was going to ask you about. I was going to ask you about Korea.
Okay, well, Korea was a very bloody, horrible war in which I'm proud to say my wife's uncle Bob played an astoundingly heroic role at the Battle of Chosin. That's one. Two, I think we were very much needed to go into war to kick the Iraqis out of Kuwait. That was very, very important. And we did that, right. Vietnam, I don't think anyone, even the smartest people, could have foreseen how difficult a war that is. People don't realize Vietnam's a big country. It's very roughly the size of California and has very roughly 90 million people. And it is a very vicious, tough dictatorship. And if you don't fight, the commissars shoot you in the back. So it's that was a very, very difficult situation. Now, let's just skip ahead to Cuba. The Cubans hate Castro. He's a miserable, mean-spirited son of a bitch. And his brother, too, and the whole dictatorship there. And the country has had enormous possibilities for being a major, prosperous country. And the communists just blew that all to hell. And Fidel Castro was so crazy, so unbelievably, insanely crazy, that he actually asked the Russians to shoot nuclear, as Bush would say, nuclear missiles at America, even though the Russians said to him, "Sir, your country is going to be turned into a glass parking lot if you do that." And he said, "I want to do it anyway." That's how crazy the Castros were. Now we have, for the first time, a genuine uprising of the Cuban people against this communist dictatorship, which is a cruel, cruel dictatorship indeed. Should we be sending troops? I don't know. To fight against the incredibly tough Cuban military, that's a very tough call. They're tough. There were just a few of them, a few thousand, or maybe even a few hundred in Grenada when we invaded Grenada. Just a few hundred or a few thousand working as construction engineers. And even they gave us a very hard time. So I don't know that it's the easiest decision in the world, but certainly we can give them moral support. We can give them guns, and guns are a big part of war. We have a lot of guns, and we can get them over to the Cubans very easily. We should be giving them material support and moral support. And for the Biden to be saying basically, oh, they're just cranks and lunatics, and the Cuban communists are fine. That is insanity. I always thought he was stupid, and there's a lot of evidence for that. But I didn't know he was insane. But now I begin to think he's insane, or he is the total marionette puppet of the communists in the United States of America.
Brilliantly said, Rob. And he brings up a great point, because Bernie Sanders and all these people that believe in, and I hate using the word socialism because it's communism.
No, it's not socialism. It's
Yeah,
Bernie is a communist. He's
yeah,
not a socialist. He's a communist.
Rob, what do we? I mean, what do we do about Bernie Sanders? I mean, what do we do about these people?
Well, he was elected. I mean, he was elected.
You know, I understand that. I understand that, Rob.
Well, so you're getting a look at what Bernie Sanders' version of America would look like. You think it's a good idea?
That's very good idea, Rob. That's very good.
Elect this nut. Cuba is what Bernie Sanders' America would look like. And what's amazing is the left always professes to be the party of the downtrodden, the forgotten, the little guy, the whatever class you want to call it. And yet people like AOC, who literally stopped Amazon from putting billions and billions of dollars into and around her district because it was going to impact the little guy, are completely silent as the little guy literally fights for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Literally fights for life. Well, AOC is, I believe, a communist agent, or certainly, without question, what is called an agent of influence. She's an evil person. It's just my opinion. I haven't consulted with Satan about whether or not he's employed her, but she is an evil person. She's a stupid person. She's an ugly person. And I don't get what's going on, except she attracts a lot of stupid, insane, ugly people to her.
Yeah, I mean, that is social media. And Rob, if we're up to me, which one of you brought up that point, we'd be running ads. We'd be running ads with Bernie Sanders and AOC, showing Cuba right now, and showing Venezuela, and showing Bernie Sanders and all these people supporting this disaster going on, Rob, as you're on TV right now, Rob.
Yeah, what's fascinating though is these people will like tweet about how great communism is from their iPhone, right? I mean, that's their iPad, and that's what gets me is they have no concept. We talked about this today on the air, the brutality of communism, that the 50 million people that Mao killed, the nearly as many
more than 50 million, more.
All the tens of millions that Stalin sent to lonely, awful existences, if not
death. And death.
Yeah.
Stalin killed more Russians than Hitler.
Yeah, and it's not a lifestyle thing, it's a life or death thing, and these idiots do not realize that.
They know nothing. And this is caused by the collapse of the American educational system. When I was in school, now bear in mind, I'm an old man. I'm 76 years old. When I went to school, it was taught communism is dictatorship. It's not much different from Nazism. Maybe it's worse than Nazism. That's all gone. The teachers are now controlled by the Communist Party. Not totally controlled, not all the teachers, but a lot of them. And they do not teach the truth about communism or about the free enterprise system. We have it so good here in America. It's unbelievable.
So somebody just wrote in chat, I can't tell if they're being serious, and I'm pretty sure that what's the problem? If Cubans are not happy, they could just come and live in the USA. I don't think
No, we don't. We do not have unlimited immigration from Cuba. Yeah. And if they're not happy, if they're unhappy, why shouldn't the commissars leave? Why shouldn't the commissars
that's a great point. And it's like these people love their country, Rob. They want to fight for their country. We need to make it accessible, like we did in Iran with all those people. We need to make it accessible for these Cubans to actually fight, like Ben said.
Well, we could make it easily accessible. I mean, we had a terrible thing called the Bay of Pigs, which was handled very, very badly by the CIA and by Eisenhower. I hate to say this because I love Eisenhower, and Kennedy. I love Kennedy too. He got a lot of cute girls, but we do not need to have an invasion. We can help in many, many ways. One is by sending arms to these people. And you know what? People at the UN will complain. The hell with them. They complain all the time. Yeah. The UN is basically an organization in a complete control of evil people, either communists or Muslims.
So, Rob, I mean, but it is, there's something to fighting for your country that is your homeland. I don't know where that's gotten lost in our society or in the world, Rob.
You know, and even you talk about the idea of military help and aid, but even something as simple as the president of the United States saying to those people, you go, you fight for you. We are with you in solidarity. We stand with you on the side of liberty and freedom. We side with you in getting rid of thugs who have killed your ancestors and continue to oppress you. That you would be amazed at the motivation that can do for people and the great things the United States standing behind you, if in spirit only, could do. And yet we don't get any of that from this administration.
Why is that? Why is that? Again, I go back to the question that we ask on this show over and over again. Biden is a hologram or holograph, whatever that word is. He's not a real person. Who's pulling the strings? I think we know now it's extreme leftists, pro-dictatorship, communists, AOC, that filthy ilk. And
I think I think as we go back, the State Department has a huge influence, and as you saw with the State, as you saw with the State Department recently, what they said, what they basically making Israel stand down with terrorist homes.
That's always, sir. The State Department has always been anti-Semitic.
No, I know,
always. And I used to work in the State Department. I worked for incredibly nice people, really, really, really nice people. And I met my wife when she was working at the State Department. My wife is not Jewish, but my wife is the most pro-Israel person in the world, except for me and you. And so the State Department can't ever be counted on. Defense Department, sometimes. It has to come from the White House. It has to come from the White House. Unfortunately, with Biden, it doesn't. He's being manipulated. I wish.
But you said it. But you said it before. Is he? That's the question. Or is it? You know, you brought up in the last show he was a segregationist. So
a long time ago.
A long time. So you've brought up really. We see the bad attributes in this person on a big scale in many ways, and on a small scale, going to his plagiarism, and his lying and all of that stuff. So and God bless him. I mean, his family we know has enriched themselves.
But also he has suffered terrible.
He has, but he they are a criminal family. We know that for Peter Schweitzer.
I know, but you know what? We know that, but we also know that he lost his son. And
yeah, but 6 and 1, we're still allowed to dissect him and say. And my point, Ben, being is that some of these thoughts might be his. And I see you wanted to jump in, Rob.
No, I was just scratching my eye.
I don't see him. There's nothing in his history which shows him taking an independent line of thought about anything. And I don't see Kamala Harris is your standard Bolshevik from Northern California or whatever part of California she's from. So I don't think either of them has anything to do with this. Somebody is pulling the strings. Who is it?
Obama?
Well, but Obama himself was not that much of a leftist. I mean, he was a leftist, but not that much of a leftist. And it's interesting. Something people forget about Barack Hussein Obama is that Minister Farrakhan, certainly an expert on anti-Semitism, said that Obama was one of the most pro-Jewish presidents there'd ever been. And in fact, as a way of mocking Obama, he called Obama America's first Jewish president. And I just don't see Obama being that far left. Obama has one big interest in life: to make money. He has said that his main goal in life is to be the first billionaire ex-president, and he may well be it. But I don't see him as being a passionate red. I mean, I see him as being a passionate moneymaker, but not a passionate red. I could be wrong.
Can we just point out one thing too? And we saw this in Hong Kong before. I believe the Chinese unleashed the coronavirus on them. We have seen that another country who is under the throes of dictatorship and communism and government oppression once again values and wants to be the United States. Think about that. We hear how much this country sucks all the time from people. We're bad at this. We're systemically racist. We're homophobic. We're, oppressor of the little people, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And yet these countries keep wanting to be us because the people from the outside looking in realize how wonderful and amazing we actually are.
And we on the inside, if we have even a little bit of brains in our feeble old heads, know how great life in America is. I mean, I'd like to just tell you something, if I may. I am an old man, old. I sit here in my living room of my modest house in Malibu. It's not a fancy house, it's a small, modest house, looking out at the ocean. It's paradise. It's paradise. I'm not rich, not far, very far from it, but I get to look at the ocean, and nobody from the Gestapo is going to come to my door and arrest me, I hope, and throw me into a railroad boxcar and then kill me. And instead, I will get to have incredibly delicious French toast for dinner tonight, along with my goddess wifey and my handsome son, I hope. We hope he's able to join us. And that's great living. That's what the other countries want. And that's what we've got.
But you brought up something, and somebody brought this up in chat about Obama. And you say you're right in one way, right? He's all about the money. He's all about the Benjamins, right? But on the other hand, the Benjamins are in leftism right now.
Right. You're right. But billions? I'm not sure that there are billions.
Well, I mean, the Netflix deals that he's getting and all of these other deals.
Well,
you're right.
Tell me about them. Tell me about them, Judah. I really don't know about them.
It's at least a couple $100 million deal he got.
What does he do for Netflix?
He produces shows. He makes.
What does that mean? I mean, I've been a producer.
He makes content. I haven't watched the content.
I mean, I was a producer for a long time, and I mean, it can mean anything.
Yes, his name is on board. His name is in the title. He's making content. It's Obama. Netflix
What's the content? What is the content?
I haven't seen. I don't watch the content that he produces in the interest of full disclosure. I know he signed a massive lucrative deal with them. I know Susan Rice was working at Netflix. She had to give up her shares, I believe, before she came into this regime. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We're having a lively discussion tonight about Cuba. And
Cuba say Yankee no.
And you could have your Cuban cigars. You could have them. It's just.
I don't want any cigars. But I want to tell you that I remember when I was a little boy watching on the television with my best friend David Skull, a wonderful guy, watching the Cubans execute people by the hundreds in a sports stadium in Havana. Anyone who had any connection with Batista would be put up on a podium. They would ask him a few questions. They would give him a Coca-Cola to drink. That was before there was Diet Coke. And then they would take him down from the podium and shoot him in front of the crowd. And the crowd would go, yay. And that's the kind of evil place this is.
And if I were Freud,
stopped.
If I were Freud, I would say, obviously Castro wanted to be a baseball player, but he wasn't good enough to play here at least. And it's odd that he did it at a stadium.
That is interesting. That's a very good point.
Can I go back to something Ben said earlier? And I know this is not the main topic of discussion tonight, but Ben, French toast is not dinner. It is not dinner, Ben.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? IHOP serves it all day long and all night long.
Breakfast. French toast is a breakfast food.
I'll tell you why it is not, why it's dinner. If I may, I put on it huge slatherings of butter and of Aunt Jemima maple syrup. It does not have a black woman on the label anymore.
What's on the label?
A Hasidic Jew.
Hasidic Jew. Anyway, and I pour that on and I eat it with my wife sitting by my side. And I get very, very drowsy because my body cannot tolerate huge amounts of sugar. I don't have diabetes, but I can't tolerate huge amounts of sugar.
So you sort of use French toast as melatonin. That's your brand of melatonin. But anyways, let me just do this quickly. If you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. Please download the episodes wherever you can. I'm reading the chat tonight. I'm loving it. I want to remind everybody we are going to be on Getter right now.
On Ghetto?
Getter. And we are joined tonight from the #1 talk show host in the whole state of Indiana, from the president of Conservative Talk Radio, from 93.1 BAM, WIBC, and Ben Stein will be joining him and Nigel tomorrow at some point, so you guys should stream that live. I think it's extremely important. So I want to get into a different topic quickly. Not a different topic, but the same topic. So Democrats always base their votership or their future votership on immigrants, on they think the amount of people you let through the border. And I really believe if you look at the numbers of Trump got with the Hispanic and Latino vote, and obviously the Democrats totally missed it, Ben, on Florida, because Cubans have done such a good job teaching their children.
And they've just Cubans are amazingly capable people.
Right.
Period. They're unbelievably capable.
And they're such good family people, and they've taught their children so well. And I was thinking, you know how there was the Southern strategy, and you always bring up what could we do as conservatives? We really need to have a Latino, a Latino Hispanic strategy, because I believe we could probably get it from 40 to 60 to 70%, because they share the same values as us.
I think that's a great point.
Oh, thank you. I've made two that you said that to tonight. But I really think that's an area they did not believe they were going to get Florida. Florida is basically a red state right now. And I really think we need to carry that message into different places.
And I think we need to carry the message to the African-American community too, if I may say so. This country, this incredibly great country that has all the French toast I want, has in its lifetime one enormous super achievement beyond any other achievement. And we have many, many great achievements. This was the super achievement. Ending slavery and making the black man who was a slave an equal participant under law with the white man who had been his master. That has never happened before in history. Never, ever has a white race that had an enslaved non-white race gone to war and lost 4 or 5 or 600,000 of its men in order to free the slave race. That's never happened before. Who did it? Not the Democrats, the Republicans. This accomplishment, this stupendous accomplishment, was done by the Republicans. And in the 50s and 60s, when the Southern Democrats were still fighting against integration, still fighting against giving black people equal voting rights, equal housing rights, etc., it was the Republicans who got these civil rights bills passed. Dwight Eisenhower, not a huge fan of integration, but enough of a fan to make it happen. His vice president, Richard Milhous Nixon, my idol, made it happen. He was the one who went down into the tar pits of the Congress and got these guys, these Southern Democrats, and talked them into playing ball. Said, so we'll do something for you. We'll build a dam for you or something.
No, Rob, he actually brings up a really good point, right? So let's take this Latino Hispanic strategy, and I think it's working actually really well. But let's go to the black strategy. This past weekend, you can't make this up, in Chicago, 40 people were shot, 11 people died. One person, as he was leaving jail, got shot 60 times. 60 times.
Literally was walking out of the jail.
And walking out of jail. And I want to bring something up. As a former New Yorker, when the greatest mayor New York City's ever had was Rudy Giuliani. When he came in and he did stop and frisk and the broken glass?
Broken windows.
Broken windows. Sorry, the broken windows. I believe if we could get mayors in, if we, people always talk about it at the local level. If we could get candidates in that promise safety and security, Rob, in these communities, we're not going to get 50% of that vote, but maybe we'll get 35%.
Or we might get 80%, because look at yourself. Look at yourself. If you're a black guy or girl or child or adult or parent or grandparent, what's your main concern? You know very well the schools are not segregated anymore. You know very well that your child, if your child has an education, can get any job he or she wants. You know he or she can ride on the bus or on the train or on the airplane or anywhere he or she wants. What does he or she need? To not be shot to death as he's playing or riding his tricycle in the front lawn. That's what we Republicans should be promising and delivering.
So, Rob, so you're completely right. So, Rob, Giuliani came in, and I remember after the first election, the exit polling was extremely off. It was extremely off because nobody in the minority communities were coming out and saying out loud, yeah, we voted for him because we're sick of dying. And he won overwhelmingly. And somebody brought up in the chat, Rob, that in Indianapolis, I guess last night, there was a bunch of people shot. So
11 people shot in like 9 hours, 3 people killed.
Indianapolis. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob. Please.
Indianapolis per capita has more murders than Chicago now. It's amazing.
Okay, let's be honest here. If you are a black person in a city in America, you live in an entirely different world from the world of Ben Stein or Judah Friedman or Rob Kendall. You live in a scary, terrifying, very bad, criminally infested world. Let's deliver America to those people. Let's give them America. Let's refund the police and then refund them again and refund them again until there are enough police to make sure it is safe on every street corner of America. And if the American Civil Liberties complains about it, let them complain. Let them complain.
Yeah, Rob, he brings up a point. The problem is the police have been so castigated that I don't know how many people are we going to have to go RoboCop in places like Indianapolis?
We might.
Rob, or where we hire private police departments.
So here we have gotten into a lengthy and passionate, I think it's a great discussion with our audience over the past couple of weeks, in which, look, there was no bigger fan of Trump than me. He was a great president. He did a lot of great stuff. But unfortunately, because of his personality, a lot of his message got lost, or the way he delivered it alienated people. And I think you saw with the record amount of African-American vote that still voted for Trump, that people like that message. If you can have a different person deliver it slightly differently, I think you bring, and look, I'm a big Ron DeSantis fan. I'm not saying I'm voting for him for president. I'm saying I like him right now. I think he brings a lot of suburban women back into the fold, who are especially seeing these things happen in inner cities. And yes, the Democrats are super racist. Their whole argument on this voter ID bill is that African Americans are too stupid to know what polling precinct they're voting.
No, they're too stupid to photocopy.
They're super racist.
That's how stupid they are. Is that Kamala Harris? They can't photocopy stuff. I mean, it is absolutely.
Well, I don't know how to photocopy things either.
That means you're, it's you don't deserve. Well, I guess voter ID laws are bad for you too, Ben Stein.
But real quick, Judah, my point is
you can go real slow.
There's a huge voting block out there. You mentioned Florida. Clearly, the Cuban community overwhelmingly went for Trump. Clearly, there is a message to the Hispanic community that resonates with the right messenger. And I agree with you. I think there's a huge swath of votes out there next time based on the radical extremism of the Democrats with a responsible nominee that Republicans can pick up.
Especially with the living voters.
Bring America to everyone. Bring the glory of America to everyone. To Black people, Hispanic people, poor people, everybody gets into the tent. George Corley Wallace, whom I often talk about on this show, he started out as a segregationist. Unfortunate, very unfortunate. Not just unfortunate, very unfortunate. In his later years, He said, if I cannot be a governor that's good, fair to people, no matter what their color, then I don't deserve to be your governor. And he said, it is going to be my goal as your governor to make sure that every person is counted in every way. That was George Wallace. He started out as a segregationist. Last time he ran for governor, he got a substantial majority of the black vote because he brought up that message with passion. He had been shot 6 times. His body was in racking, horrible pain, but he rose above and through that pain to deliver a message of hope to African Americans.
Okay, so my question to both of you is this. So we don't have social media, obviously, and we don't have the universities. But what if one of the things we did, I grew up growing up in New York, you had Curtis Sliwa, who ran the Guardian Angels.
He had that cute girlfriend.
If that's what you want to remember, or he's still alive and he's still running the Guardian Angels. But what about
he's the Republican nominee for mayor, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, there's a good chance. And he was great. And he used to have a radio show with somebody I couldn't stand, which was Kubi. The guy that was the defender of the people at the prison, Ron Kubi. That's who he was, the former lawyer, and sadly the lawyer that for a bunch of bad people. But what about if we just said, if we as a Republican Party took money from the RNC, or we raised money for private security in these areas? So we're not going to be able to get you online, but we'll get you on the ground. I'm just throwing out ideas, Ben, for ideas in cities like Chicago and Indianapolis and all these cities. What if we hired private security forces for these areas?
I'm not sure that would be allowed by the Constitution, especially considering the makeup of the courts these days. But I think the idea of saying, our promise for you is this: we're already in a period of pretty darn high prosperity, not for everyone, but for most people. What we need is safety and security for everyone. That's our goal. And we're not going to let us be talked out of it by the beautiful people in the media. We're not going to let us be talked out of it by the ACLU. We are going to make Americans feel safe and secure, and make it so that their children can grow up not being terrified.
Rob, let me ask you a question. Since everything on the left seems to be allowed, there are allowed to be homeless encampments all over. They're allowed to pretty much loot, riot, and do all these things. Why isn't it possible for us to do that? To do our own security forces, to do, I'm not saying legally. I think it's worth it.
You can't do it if it's illegal.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I don't see what's illegal about roaming areas, especially in areas where you can conceal a gun, Rob.
So a great example is here in Indianapolis, back when we actually used to give a damn about violence and keeping it under control. And we had a Republican that was mayor not too long ago of the city. There's a lot of faith-based groups. The 10-Point Coalition is the most prominent one. And they go into these areas. They know who the bad actors are. They influence the bad actors that is going to be better and more beneficial for them to be at least decent actors. And they say, we know who you are. We're watching you, and you will be punished if you do something. It's easy to say defund the police, but a huge portion or the defunding of the police that's doing this. But a huge portion is also these prosecutors and judges, because a big part of it is how quickly these people can get out of jail, and the sentencing and the early release of these hardened criminals. So it's a lot more than just defund the police. It comes back to people like George Soros allowing these radical leftist prosecutors to be in these positions.
What a clever, evil guy he is, taking all that money he made through the capitalist system to use it to try to install communism in America. What an evil,
like I've said on this show before, you can't make a Bond villain up like George Soros.
No, you really can't.
We don't have it. I mean, Larry Elder, I guess he made an announcement
he's great.
He's running for governor. God bless him.
Of California?
That's what somebody said.
I love him. I love him.
Yeah, so do I. He is the sage from South Central.
I love him.
We love Larry Elder.
Ben, why aren't you running?
I am too old, and I am too weak, and I am too frail, and my system is loaded with French toast.
I listened, Rob. I wanted Gary Sinise to run for governor. I think he'd be the perfect.
I love Gary Sinise.
Yes, we met him. We bumped into him in the hospital that one time too. And I think he would make the perfect candidate. And I don't know why he doesn't. I'm sure he's got plenty of money in the bank. I hope to God he does after all the success he's had. And I think he would make a great governor. And I think, Rob, he could actually win.
Well, so part of the issue is like there just seems to be too many Republicans running and no one who really stands out. And I'm super worried they're going to all split the vote. And then Newsom's going to sneak back in with 25% of the voters.
He's not going to sneak back in. It's almost Newsom's winning. I mean, it doesn't really, unless you have a Gary Sinise and everybody drops off the ballot. And I love Larry Elder, but he doesn't have a shot in hell of becoming the.
Because we talked about this today on the air. Caitlyn Jenner's message is awful. I have no idea why she's running. I have no idea.
Who is
Bruce Jenner. Caitlyn, the former Olympian.
Oh, Christ. That person is crazy. Anyway, I respectfully would like to respectfully disagree, respectfully. I think that Larry Elder would make a very fine governor.
I didn't say he wouldn't.
And I think he's a fine candidate. And I think I know him. I consider him charismatic, and I love him. He just exudes love and confidence.
I agree with you.
I
agree with you 100%. If he made Leo Tyrell his lieutenant governor, I think them two would have a real. I actually really think them two would have a real shot.
Those two.
Thank you, Mrs. Levin, would have a real shot at maybe challenging Gavin Newsom. But if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, and I am reading obviously all your chats. And I want to thank everybody that's been downloading the show. Remind you, please keep downloading the show, even if you're watching it here. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Cast, whatever cast is possible, and download the show. We will be on Getter soon. We are on Getter now, but we're setting in the process.
I don't know what Getter is.
It's sort of it's the new. It's hopefully the new Parler. It's sort of like the conservative place, Twitter, all that stuff where we're not going to be censored. But Rob, Ben will be joining you tomorrow. Tell us what time, hopefully.
Hopefully 3:30 Eastern. I'm in addition to the Mock and Rob.
Wait a minute. 12:30 my time.
Yes, correct. 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. In addition to the Mock and Rob show, I'm filling in on the afternoon show on WIBC, which is the Hammer and Nigel show. It's number 1. I am playing the role of Hammer, and Nigel, who is my co-host, is a gigantic Ben Stein fan. He said, please ask Ben if we can get him on the show.
And you could also stream it. And yes. And so you could watch the show live. And of course, the show wouldn't be complete without America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. And we are discussing tonight some serious topics. And I love what when you bring to the table, Ben, and you say, what's our platform? And I love what you about opening the tent. So the straw poll came out the other day from after the CPAC, and Trump won, obviously the straw poll. So I think, Rob, the inevitability is that he's going to run for president. The question is, who does he pick as a vice presidential candidate?
Larry Elder.
No, that's not a bad idea.
He's not going to be the nominee. Donald Trump is not going to be the Republican nominee for president.
Okay, if I were a betting man, Rob, if I still were a betting man, I would say to you,
that's funny coming from you, Judah.
If I would heavily suggest, I would heavily say that Donald Trump is the front runner. He will be the nominee. I mean,
I want to make sure he's in good health.
Yes, God willing. Ben, some of those people, they just keep going. He's a guy that I could see going in 95 eating McDonald's.
God bless him.
He'll be on, like, if Willard Scott were still alive, he'd say, how did you do it, Donald Trump? And he'd say, McDonald's, Diet Coke, and cheeseburgers.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Doesn't the argument for Ron DeSantis have to be this guy is incapable of winning a general election, and if you nominate him again, it'll be 70 of the most hardcore million votes ever, but it's going to be Barry Goldwater, 1964, all over again? That has to be the argument, right?
He's Barry. You don't even remember Barry Goldwater. He was very, very ideological and very, 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 very strict in his interpretation of the world. And he was a guy who, unfortunately, did not really back off the idea of using nuclear weapons. I mean, he scared people to death. He really did. I mean, it's funny. I could not vote for him because I wasn't old enough. I remember very well. I was election night. I was out on a date with a girl from Barnard, whom I had just met. She was a cute girl, and
From
she
where?
Barnard, the girl's part of Columbia.
Yeah.
And she asked me who I was voting for, and I said, "Well, I'm not old enough to vote, but if I could vote, I would vote for Goldwater." She stopped at the next stop and got off and ran off and said very nasty things to me as the doors were closing. I don't know. What's the relevance of that? I don't know. I guess I'm still losing my mind. Sorry.
You're allowed. But one of my favorite Goldwater quotes is, I believe this was him when they said about gays in the military, and he responded, "The only thing I care about is that you can shoot straight." And
that's good. That's good. That's good.
And that's another area, Ben, where Republicans really need to change their charter towards the gay community, because it is not the friendliest charter.
Judah, back off, Judah. You tell me what is. I have never seen one anti-gay word from the Republican Party. Not one.
I said in their charters and in their.
I have never.
I will send it to you, and it is extremely inflammatory. It is extremely non-welcoming. Donald Trump brought in Peter.
Okay, I want to see what it is. I will tell you that I think whatever it is, we know, you and I know, because we have shopped at the gay pavilions in West Hollywood many a time, and we have been approached by gay men throwing their arms around us and saying they're for Trump.
Yes, yeah, Rob.
So what is Trump's argument of how he gets across the finish line? What's his argument?
Okay. Let's be real here. I mean, without saying anything that could affect YouTube, because we all know the election was fair and honest. If people are able to go to the voting polls, and they aren't confined to their homes, and there's real voter, all these voter integrity laws are actually, the voter normal laws are passed, Trump wins in a landslide, Rob. Let's not forget he got 75 million votes. 75. He won 18 of the 19 bellwether counties in the most fair and honest elections the United States has ever seen. And so and here's another thing I want to remind you about Donald Trump, and Ben knows this from Donald Trump's history. The man has gone bankrupt. He's lost it all. He's gotten it all. He's lost it all. You don't put Donald Trump in a corner. Don't put baby in a corner. This is a guy that is not going to go down as wanting to be a one-term president, Ben Stein, and that's what makes Trump Trump.
And Rob, I think you're forgetting half of the equation, my dear friend. Half of the equation is how good a president was Mr. Biden. I mean, if Mr. Biden is judged by the American people to have been a great president, well, then of course no Republican is going to win. But I think I'm not seeing much evidence of Mr. Biden doing brilliant things. True, the economy is very, very strong, but with borrowed money printed by the government, floods of inflationary money, it's going to be a real problem. I've seen it, with all due respect. I've seen that inflation come around and kick people in the butt, and I think it's going to happen again, and that's going to be held very much against Mr. Biden.
Okay, so let me ask this.
Go ahead.
And I'm just picking DeSantis. Maybe
you could do it. By the way, you could ask this quickly or slowly.
Okay, so I'm picking DeSantis just because he's the most probably prominent one right now.
Yeah. Well, I love him. By the way, I love him too. I'm
not suggesting we nominate Jeb Bush. I'm not saying that it's Marco Rubio or Chris Christie, or what I'm saying though is
that's funny.
He's basically saying he's not saying rhinos.
Right. I'm saying if you can get 90% of Trump policy without 90% of the drama, and this guy has a better chance for whatever reason you want to pick to get in there, why would people say, well, I'm going to gamble with the guy who lost last time when I feel like this guy has all the attributes?
Because I think, Rob, as much as I love Ron DeSantis, and I really do like him, I think he's fantastic. I don't think he has that charisma that Trump has.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't. And here's another thing, Rob. Remember, there's a lot of dirt on people. I'm not saying DeSantis has any on him, but Trump was one of the few people that could handle dirt. He knows there's nobody better, Ben, at taking shots and owning their dirt than Trump. Trump's got, what are his skeletons? What are you going to say about him? There's nothing the dude's got to hide at this point, at Ben Stein.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'd like to say, I want to see what Biden's achievements are going to be. I think, as I say, we're in a period of extraordinary prosperity. The big problem we have now is serious, acute labor shortages. Very, very acute. Not cute, but acute. And what's he going to do about it? If he can't do anything about it, we're in a lot of trouble. It is a very serious problem when a major industrial country cannot get trained workers to work in its factories, hospitals, mills, machines, universities. It's a serious problem.
And by the way, yes, I am being sarcastic when I say certain things so we do not get banned from YouTube. So if
I love YouTube.
Yes, we love YouTube, and we love their fair and honest. But Larry Klayman called me before and told me he was banned for a week, and he got censored by them once again. And somebody else raises a great point. Another great candidate that I really grew a lot of respect for, which was Ted Cruz. You got
he's become great. I used to not like him, but he's become great.
And I'm right there with you, Ben. He's become great, but he's another one of those guys, Rob, that I don't know if he's got that crossover appeal. I don't believe he does. He's alienated before in the past, New Yorkers, and not that we'll get New York, but he doesn't have that thing, Rob. He doesn't have that Rob Kendall thing where you're starring on TV commercials in Indiana.
Well, look, I would love nothing more than if Trump were president again. I want to win. And I'm not saying I want to win with a rhino Republican. I want to win. And I hope Trump will maybe practice a little more discipline than he did.
But I want to ask you a question.
You know what? Can I say something? I think 100% he will. If he could have if he had the people in his last year, if he had them from the get-go, if he had guys like Pompeo, people that he could in the inner circle that he could truly trust, 100%, Rob, he could stay. You learn from your mistakes. You do. He's somebody that has learned in the past, real estate wise, from their mistakes. But I want to use you as an example, Rob. You're filled with charisma. Do you think Ron DeSantis has your charisma, Rob?
I feel like Ben wants to hop in on this. He appeared to be raising his hand.
No,
I'm raising my hand in adulation of you because of your charisma.
Yeah, Rob, but I'm serious. Put yourself in that boat, right? You're a very charismatic human. I don't want to say guy because I think we have a lot of females that are charismatic too, like Chrissy
My wife.
And your wife, yes. But you're very charismatic. Ask yourself, do those candidates have that same charisma, Rob?
They don't. I just think that I just worry. I don't look, again, if Trump's the nominee, I'm all in, right? I'm not saying that in any shape, form, or fashion. I just worry about his appeal to suburban female voters. And I feel like a guy like DeSantis, he's a good-looking dude. He was in the military. He's had a stable family life, a wife, couple kids. I just worry about how you put the Trump weaknesses.
Ben, he raises a great point, and that's where it goes to the Latino strategy and the Black strategy. Because if we could increase the Latino vote by 15 or 10 or 15% and increase the Black vote by 10%, it's a lock, Ben.
I know but I'm going to say for the millionth time, it largely depends on Mr. Biden. Mr. Biden still has an awful lot of his term to go. Let's see how he does. Let's see how he does when the Cuban tanks are running over the demonstrators and crushing them into little pieces Is he going to say anything decent or heroic? When inflation is making it impossible for most Americans to buy a house, is he going to do anything about it? Is there anything he can do about it? Is he going to have a tax policy that is not going to be anti-growth? Does he love America enough to love it even if rich people get rich from it? And by the way, I'm not a rich person. Don't think I'm saying this because I'm a rich person, because I'm not a rich person. I would like to know, I want to know, what is his policy on taxation? Is he for taxation to punish the rich, or is he for taxation to make America grow?
All right, here's the deal. We're going to make this bet right now. Not that you're a betting man, Judah.
That's
but
right.
If Ron DeSantis is the Republican nominee for
He'll
president,
He'll win.
Ben and Judah have to come to WIBC. Pray to God I'm still working there in 3 years. And we're going to have Ben Stein Day at WIBC.
I hope Ben Stein is still alive and he has not died.
I hope Judah Friedman is still alive at the pace I'm going.
From an excess of French toast.
And by the way, I just want to say, somebody keeps on saying in the chat, they goes, Judah, stop being so PC. I don't know what I'm being politically correct about.
Yeah.
And I don't see the sarcasm. I'm trying to figure out what I'm being politically correct about.
The way you've done your hair.
Yeah, I know, the Jew frohawk. I said that to
I know.
somebody.
What kind of a haircut is that?
It's my Jew frohawk. It's I love it. I'm proud of it. I found out.
But what is it? I've never seen it before.
You saw it, yes, 2 days ago.
I mean, I've never seen it on any other human being.
That's the point.
What, that you're not a human being?
No, that I am unique, and I am enjoying it a lot. You got to, and Rob soon, when everything grows in, is going to do the same thing.
No, I don't.
As someone who's had hair
so.
and lost it, yes, I will say that is quite impressive what you're doing with yourself, Judah.
By the way, I've had hair and lost it. Ben saw me. I was 90% bald, and I'll never forget when I was going through the roughest time. He said to me, "The women will love you anyway." And because I have a horrific alopecia, and I had to literally shave my head twice a day when it got bad. And it's people like,
I wouldn't talk about that on the air if I were you.
What?
Never mind.
Alopecia?
I'm kidding.
Oh, yes, being an alopecia, it's part of my intersectionality, Ben. It raises it up.
I know.
And I want to thank everybody that's been listening in the chat, following in the chat. We are running out of time, but I think we got a lot.
I don't think we've run out of time. Not by my clock.
I know we have a few minutes to go, and I wanted to let you say what I know was in your head.
What is in my head is that we stand at a big crossroads in the Western Hemisphere. We are seeing a people try to throw off a communist dictatorship that has been especially brutal and nasty. We have a chance now to do something decent and heroic. We can do it, or we can be pushed around by a group of certifiable lunatic communists in the Democrat Party. What are we going to do? We are at a big time crossroads, very big time. Please, please, Americans, demand that your government help the poor, downtrodden, liberty-loving people of a great nation, Cuba.
And very well said. And Rob and Ben, what somebody said they were referring to was I was, being too specific towards my, I guess, groups, with Latinos. The reason I am is because I'm saying they're Americans. I don't look at them as groups. I don't look at the Latino, the Cuban communities and the Black communities as I look at them as Americans. And we have to get these Americans in our tent, whatever color, creed, race, religion they are. And as Ben said, Rob, the best way to do it is with love, opening it up, expanding it, showing our values. Because Rob, most of these communities share our values.
Yeah, you treat everybody equally and treat them with dignity and tell them you matter. And you might be surprised if you reach out to them what you get. Ben, I did have a question from the peanut gallery for you tonight that I said I would get to. I hope that's all right. This person wanted to know, what is the most amount of money you lost on Win Ben Stein's money?
Well, I think the most that I could lose was $5,000. So I think that was the rule of the game. But I will tell you, I'm the only talk show host ever on any show who put up his own money against the contestants. And no one else has ever done that. I mean, I loved Alex Trebek like a brother. I thought he was wonderful, and my wife and I hardly ever missed a show. But he was not playing with his own money, and he was not answering the questions. He was just reading from cue cards. No one else has ever had to answer the questions. I played almost 1,000 games and won over 80% of them against some very smart people. And that was damned hard work. And
but that's what made it so good and so unique and so
well,
special.
God bless you. We won 7 Emmys, and yeah. I have not seen how many Emmys other people won, but 7 is a lot.
Do you have them at your house? Like, are they framed somewhere?
I have 3 of them. Some of them are in the possession of an incredibly wonderful man's wife, Al Burton. He invented the show, a genuinely wonderful man, a really, really wonderful man. His wife, Sally, has some of them. I have 3 of them on my mantle.
I have a picture of my dog on my mantle.
Does that answer the peanut galleries questions, Rob?
Yeah. Well, I wondered what kind of like your career record was, because it seemed like you won most of the time.
I did. I won about 80% of the time. Well, I had to win. It was my money. I needed the money to pay my bills. I'm not a rich Democrat. I'm a poor, hardworking Republican with a good Republican cloth coat.
I can't think of a more capitalist show than that show, by the way.
But your brain was your capital.
Your brain, and it was your own capital, as opposed to networks capital, as opposed to commercial the commercials capital. It was Ben Stein's own capital, and that's old school. I mean, that's like Gladiator. It's new age. It's new age Gladiator. Rob.
It was a hard job.
And it was a fantastic show. I mean,
well, God bless you.
Let's be real. People absolutely love that show.
I know we're out of time, but next time I'm on, Ben, you're gonna have to tell me the story about how that show all came together.
I will. I'll be happy to.
And Rob, I will. Oh, sorry. And Rob, since we are running out of time, please tell people, because I think it's coming in amazingly well. Where you got your? Give them a plug.
WeGrowHairIndie.com.
And I can't think of a better way of giving up. That should be, you should recommend their commercials where I'm giving a plug for a plug. And I thought that was cute and brilliant, but that's just me. I want to thank everybody that's been listening in the chat. I want to remind everybody to keep downloading the podcast. I want to thank everybody that was participating tonight in the chat. Of course, we have the president of Conservative Talk Radio with us tonight from 93.1. Bam, WIBC. Don't forget spectator.org. That's where Ben writes most of his stuff. You can read it there. Give a few shekel if you have it. We're going to be on Getter now, the new social media platform. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our email, benstein.substack.com. I love the show. Hopefully, Rob, we will see you Thursday night if you're available. You will let us know. Ben Stein, please take us out.
There's a story in our town of the prettiest girl around. Golden hair and eyes of blue, how those eyes could flash a Jew. Boys hung round her by the score, but she loved the boy next door who worked at the candy store. Dream on, teenage queen, prettiest girl we've ever seen. There's a lot more to it. It's one of my favorite songs. It really goes out to my wifey, the world's most beautiful human, and to our very, very, very dear friend, a very, very dear friend of ours from a small town in the upper Midwest, who was also a teenage beauty.